Hang on, Paul, I'll look it up, mate, just a moment.
Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing. Today on Friday the 10th of April on New Zealand Sport Radio. Sorry, not the best start, but hey, we will get onto it because there is some cracking news going on today. We're going to hear about hash players together storming social media, 9 Network launches a scathing attack on the NRL, and Gatland opens up on his relationship with Eddie Jones, along with some more Formula 1 news. And to kick us off, I'm going to hand you over to Steve from the Deep South, who will take us through our football update.
Yes, good morning, Paul. Good morning, everyone. Joining in today, we've got some, quite big football news coming from around the globe today. Mainly it is over on the other side of the world, so we're donning the good old Premier League United shirt. But around the football world today, New Zealand football puts in some markers for a possible season later in the year. The Saints drop first pay cut in the Premier League. Premier League teams also get a payout. The FA launches an esports cup. But first, yes, players together. Get the hashtag out. Launches social media. And that has been the huge news in football over the last 24 hours. Premier League players have confirmed they have found their own collective player initiative. It's called Players Together, and they've partnered with the NHS Charities Together, the NHSCT. It's all getting too many letters to keep a track of now, in order to assist with them in generating and distributing their funds quickly and efficiently. The news broke about 30 minutes after we did yesterday's show, which was just amazing timing, players. You could have done a little bit earlier for us. And they updated yesterday morning with players have been making noise about this for about a week or so. So there's been a little bit of chatter that there's been something player generated going on for a bit of time now. So you can look on social media yourself. Places like Twitter was absolutely hammered yesterday with a collective post that all the players involved were putting in here. So you can search it up. It's put hashtag players together if you want to know a bit more about it and see the message that they've all posted at pretty much the same time yesterday. On this message, they say that Players Together is a separate to any club or league conversation that can help get the funds to those who need it right now. How many involved who didn't post on social media and how much money they've raised so far, it is a bit hard to say for now, but the move has garnered plenty of praise for all the players involved and from every Premier League team as well, but none more so than Liverpool captain Jordan Henderson, who seems to have led this initiative himself right from the get-go, and who said footballers weren't smart, eh? They've bypassed the PFA and their bickering nonsense that we've seen over the last week or two. They've bypassed the clubs who have so many hoops to jump through that it seems almost too difficult to do it, and they've just slapped it out. Bang, no problems, done. Jordan, well done, and the rest of the players can only be commended for this little initiative that they've put together here. Moving on to other news, Southampton have been the first Premier League club to announce their players will take a wage cut. The players, manager, coaches and the board of directors will all adopt the new measures for about the next 3 months. Any remaining staff who are not taking the cut will still be getting 100% of their pay during those 3 months. On top of this happening, the Premier League will give clubs an advance of millions of pounds each to help with their cash flow over the next few months. The clubs have all agreed last Friday to receive a percentage of their merits payment in advance this season. So the merits payment normally paid out at the end of the season, and it's determined by where you finish or where you are in the league as to how much money you will get. So it's unknown who gets what, but it's going to be a lot of money for all the clubs that will help them survive without any income at the moment. So it's just amazing how these terms of millions of pounds is just bandied about like it's nothing. These clubs just play with some ridiculous amounts of money. Meanwhile, in esports and still in the EPL, the FA is launching hashtag another one, Football's Staying Home Cup. Now that's going to involve 16 players in a FIFA 20 tournament, and they're all going to be playing from home over the Easter weekend. It kicks off today, and you can find all the action on the FA's Twitter or the YouTube channel, and you can go and see it there, join in, and even donate if you feel the need to help out those guys over there. But I mean, keep it at home. Why not? Back in New Zealand, though, New Zealand football has announced there will be no football taking place in the country until at least Queen's birthday weekend at the very earliest. So that's June the 1st. If you're like me and you had to find out when exactly Queen's birthday weekend was, because I had no idea. They do hope teams may be able to start training from May the 16th if possible, but it depends on the alert level at the time and whether they can do it or not. With the new date in mind, work has already begun to put a possible season in place that can go ahead in 2020, and hopefully that will be the case. And lastly, before we wrap up, one game tonight in the Belarusian Premier League. It will be Neman Grodno who will be hosting Balshina, and we'll have the results and the other matches for the weekend coming up for you tomorrow. That is football from me, Paul. Enjoy your day, everyone. I'll be back again tomorrow with plenty more.
Thank you very much, Stephen, from the Deep South for your football update. Moving on to cricket, and Australian cricketer Pat Cummins has come out and said that he will support the IPL being played behind closed doors. Well, that's not a big surprise, is it? Let's be honest, folks, because the players make a big part of their income from this tournament. Initially, this tournament had been delayed until currently it's been delayed until the 15th of April. It was due to kick off on the 29th of March, but with the extended lockdown now in India, this is expected to be further delays or cancellations to that. Also, in cricket news, Ashley Giles, the director of cricket for England, has come out and said that it's less and less likely that England's home tests against West Indies in June will go ahead. Again, that's not surprising, but we'll await and hear what official news on that one. So handing you over now to Stephen from the far north, who will be taking us through the birthdays.
Oh, thank you, Paul, and a good morning to everybody. Just before we get into this morning's birthday, if you've been tuning into New Zealand Sports Radio, take the opportunity to check out an interview that Paul did with former Samoan scrum half Dwayne Pulataibao yesterday. It was posted on the website, and it's a great story about how he went from Auckland club halfback to playing international rugby. So fantastic, guys. So
well, I'm not sure he'll like the term former. I think he would. He was at the Rugby World Cup, and I think if selected, he'd be more than happy to go back again.
Yeah, this is why Paul should be doing his own adverts early in the morning, but he wasn't quite prepared. So I'm going to chuck that brick right back at you, Paul. Anyway, we'll head on to our birthdays. This morning we're talking about an all-white that went from player to coach, and a New Zealand-born rugby player who went from Kaitaia to Rome. And that's exactly where we're going to start, up the top of the north, because that's where Matthew Phillips, who was a New Zealand-born rugby player, was born. He represented Italy at international level. Now, Phillips, after representing New Zealand at under-21 level, moved to Italy in 1999 to play for Rugby Viadana. After gaining citizenship in 2002, he was selected for the Azzurri in the same year. He played 14 tests in total, the highlights of his career being 2 test appearances at the 2003 Rugby World Cup in Australia. Matthew Phillips, born this day, 10th of April, 1975. He is 45 years old today. And moving to that football international, Ricky Lloyd Herbert is a New Zealand former footballer and former head coach of the New Zealand national team, the All Whites. Herbert has not only had the distinction of representing his country at the 1982 FIFA World Cup as a player in Spain, but also as the head coach of his country at the 2010 FIFA World Cup in South Africa. Herbert, in a distinguished playing career, racked up 61 appearances for the All Whites, and in a playing career that lasted over 12 seasons, representing several clubs, which included 45 appearances for English EPL club Wolverhampton Wanderers. 6 years after retiring, Herbert took over as the head coach of the All Whites in 2005. Ricky Lloyd Herbert, born this day, 10th of April, 1961 in Auckland. He is 59 years old. And I've just got to say, Herbert actually made his full international debut in a 4-0 win over Mexico on the 20th of August, 1980, as an 18-year-old at Bill McKinley Park in Auckland. And I've got to say, there was a 17-year-old who was there watching that debut as well. I'll let you guess who that was.
Wow, and that also came up in the Do You Know Sports quiz on Wednesday evening. So you can catch the recording of that either on our Facebook page, New Zealand Sport Radio, or on the podcast. And a happy birthday to those two people, and let's hope they have a nice cake in their bubble. Moving on to rugby news now, and in MLR news, which is the professional league in the USA. The Colorado Raptors have announced they are leaving Major League Rugby. They're the first team to leave the sport. They did make the final in the first year, but have been struggling since then. We'll be having a in-detail report on that on the DrivingMaul.com later today, which is our sister rugby website. So check out DrivingMaul.com. As I say, we'll have an in-depth analysis into that later on today. Warren Gatland has opened up on his relationship with Eddie Jones. He says that that all the stuff in the press is all a bit of fun and is all gamesmanship, whilst they actually get on well and have had dinner together. But obviously they are very competitive people and always looking at beating each other. Welsh international Hadley Parkes is rumoured to be heading to Japan. Earlier this season he was linked with Kobe Steele, but now it looks like it's going to be Panasonic Wild Knights that he'll be going to, replacing Damien Delende, the South African, in side centre. If he goes there, he'll be a teammate of Sam Whitelock and Pocock as well, the the All Black and the ex-Wallaby. News coming out of France is that they will be having to cut their suits for their cloth, and there will be a lot of players suddenly available coming up in the near future. Some of the news is that after this virus, a lot of the talk has been of supporting local and shopping local, and there is a thought or there's expectation that French rugby will head in the same direction and be looking at hiring more local players rather than international players. So it'll be interesting to see how that has an impact on global rugby, as France, along with Japan, have been the top payers in world rugby for some time now. If they're having to cut back on wages, then obviously players may not be heading overseas quite as early as we have seen previously. Yeah, hand you back now to Steve from the far north, who will take us through league news.
Thank you, Paul. And now back to the gift that just keeps on giving. The Nine Network has launched a scathing attack on the NRL, accusing the league of mismanagement and breaking its lucrative broadcast deal. The statement comes on the same day League Central was expected to announce plans to resume its competition halted by the COVID-19. It is understood the network is furious about being left out of discussions on what the season would look like should it recommence. At Nine, we had hoped to work with the NRL on a solution to the issues facing rugby league in 2020, was one of the statements released. Nine has invested hundreds of millions in this game over the decades, and we now find they have profoundly wasted those funds with very little to fall back on to support the clubs, the players, and the supporters. In the past, the NRL have had problems, and we've bailed them out many times, including a $50 million loan to support clubs when the contract was last signed. It would now appear that much of this has been squandered by a bloated head office, completely ignoring the needs of the clubs, players, and supporters. We now find ourselves with a contract that is unfulfilled by the code. We hope we could talk through this long term. And just pretty much in breaking news, pretty much hot off the wires, the Australian Rugby League Commission has announced its plans to restart the NRL competition on May 28th and is weighing up the merits of the two potential season structures. Our goal is to give as much certainty as we can in uncertain times. There is clear evidence that the curve is flattening, said ALRC Peter Valandes. He's the chairman. The New South Wales government has done a great job in reducing the infection rate from 22.7% when we suspended the competition to 1.3%. So trajectory is pretty much on target. The situation is changing dramatically, and we need to get moving. It's the best interest of our clubs, our players, our stakeholders, and importantly to our fans that the competition resumes as quickly and safely as possible. You kind of do wonder, fellas, if there's a few porkies or forked tongues that are coming out of a lot of individuals in NRL, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you've got to say that some codes have shown that they are cats work better and are more inclusive than other codes, as we've seen over this period. Going on to general sports news, and we kick off with the turf wars are at an end. Until now, looking after plants was not considered an essential service in New Zealand, but that has now been relaxed and has been included. For where there might be permanent damage. Golf courses have been unable to cut their greens. Normally these are cut 5 times a week. As we've heard from Steve Hobson from the New Zealand Golf Course Superintendents Association, our greens are our babies, and if we stay away from those for too long, there will be repercussions down the other end with job losses and probably club closures. Wow, I didn't realise that letting your grass grow could be so damaging, but apparently it is so that they need to cut them probably at least 3 times a week, and they've not been able to do so since the lockdown. So care of plants in non-plantation nurseries will be able to go ahead now under these new rules. The other group that will be very pleased with this will be the bowling clubs, who need to look after their turfs as well, and other stadiums where they need to manage the pitches. In more Formula 1 news, Brawn has come out and said that 8 races would be the minimum. Number for a proper season. At the moment, we're looking at logistics of a closed race and how we would get the people there, how we would protect them, and how we would make it safe, and who would be allowed into the paddock. That would include, a bit like we heard from the UFC, chartering planes in and potentially sort of keeping people on coaches segregated from the actual, in a sort of mini bubble, segregated from the actual country that they're travelling to. And at the moment, everything is on the table. They could be racing anywhere between 8 and 19 races, and the season could extend into next year. Interesting to hear from Hugh in Australia that you're still allowed to play golf, even though many golf courses have voluntarily closed down. I guess golf is a sport where you do social distance normally. Anyway, you don't normally. So it's not a contact sport, is it? And if you play golf like I do, anyway, you don't play where everyone else is playing. You're all over the place in the rough. So lots of sort of social distancing when I play my golf. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much to Steve from the deep south. From the beautiful deep south, and Stephen from the far north for joining me this morning. Don't forget, you can join us at 8 a.m. every morning here on the New Zealand Sport Radio Facebook page for live updates, and also you can get the recordings on your podcasts. So if you prefer to listen rather than watch, find us on all your favourite podcatchers and subscribe there. Tell all your friends. Let's grow this into a real movement. Stay safe, everybody, and have a wonderful day.